Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today with us. I'm Assemblywoman Luz Rivas. I'm proud to represent the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. That's where I grew up. I've been in office for 4 years and excited that you all have joined us here today. As you may know, the San Fernando Valley is a dense, urbanized area of Los Angeles with an oversaturation of buildings and limited green spaces. As a result, the valley, like many other communities in California, greatly suffer from the urban heat island effect, meaning that this area and many others like it experience higher than average temperatures. In my district, people are hosing down their houses to lower their house by 2 or 3 degrees during an extreme heat. When I was a kid, when the San Fernando Valley would reach over 100 degrees, my mom would take us to the mall or to a grocery store because we didn't have air conditioning and we just couldn't bear the heat. You know, there's a certain point where these fans blowing at you are just blowing hot air at you, and it's unbearable. And many families still today do that. They have to sleep outside. They find ways to cool themselves down. But because recently extreme heat waves have become more frequent, it's no longer just the summer. We've experienced them starting now in April, these DIY methods of keeping ourselves cool at home are not enough anymore. Like I said, this is not a recent phenomenon. The truth is, climate change has quickly made this problem worse. And these extreme heat events are more dangerous than ever. Not only are these weather occurrences affecting our health, they are also destroying our infrastructure. Extreme heat has impacted nearly the entire northern hemisphere this year. Listen and consider these statistics. Dozens of daily heat records are being broken in US cities. We just entered August and Europe is already in its 3rd extreme heat wave. In a single day in July, Spain and Portugal reported over 1,000 heat-related deaths. In the UK, flights are being delayed because the runways are melting. Glaciers in Italy are melting. In China, roof tiles on museums have melted and caused closures, and wildfires are raging through many countries. This summer, we have once again witnessed record-breaking heat waves in our state and across the globe. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that July of 2021 was the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, ever. The climate we grew up in is no longer the climate we live in today. This crisis is here, and it's bringing extreme weather events unlike any we have ever experienced. Extreme heat events are getting hotter, lasting longer, and becoming more deadly than ever before. We are all very vulnerable to the effects of this climate crisis that we are living through. Extreme heat exacerbates underlying health conditions, increases greenhouse gases, depletes our soil, intensifies wildfires, results in premature and avoidable deaths, and much more. Children with asthma are unable to play outside. Farmers are losing dying crops that cannot withstand the heat. And individuals with pre-existing health conditions are struggling to stay alive. Seniors, infants, expecting mothers, and outdoor workers are some of the most vulnerable populations impacted by extreme heat. This is a public health crisis and is disproportionately impacting low-income and communities of color. Emergency room visits skyrocket during extreme heat events. I've had several medical doctors contact me in support of our bills, and they all have stories of what happens in the emergency room as a result of extreme heat events. More people are dying from extreme heat than any other extreme weather disaster. A lot of people don't realize that. We think of an extreme weather disaster like a hurricane or an earthquake, where in the news you see the number of deaths, but really extreme heat is the #1 killer in terms of extreme weather events. Unfortunately, we know that these impacts are disparate. Areas that experience extreme heat often have large expanses of concrete, less greenery, higher density housing, lower average incomes, and poorer health statuses. Low income and communities of color, like the area that I represent, suffer from the urban heat island effect and are enduring the most of these climate impacts. So we are bearing the brunt of climate change and not necessarily the people that are causing this to happen. As policymakers, we have a responsibility to respond to this crisis with bold actions. And that's why we're here today, to present to you what we have been doing in the California State Legislature to mitigate extreme heat. I'm proud that my colleagues have joined me today to explain to you what we're all doing. I have introduced two bills, AB 2076 and AB 2238. The first one, I've been working with climate organizations on an extreme heat plan for California. And AB 2238, I'm proud to work with Commissioner Ricardo Lara on this bill that will create a heat ranking system that you'll hear more about. So our communities deserve to be protected from heat. California needs to be at the forefront of this, and so that's why we're here today to lay out how we're leading and how we continue to lead. So next, I am proud to introduce Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Rivas. You know, we're experiencing it right now. We are in a global crisis, and essentially what scientists and experts have been telling us for years, unfortunately, that has arrived now to our planet. You know, heat waves this summer are creating devastating impacts on vulnerable communities. California is taking urgent action to manage current conditions and prepare for even more extreme heat waves we know will come. We know that what it's like, as Assemblywoman Luz Rivas was saying, living without air conditioning, families sleeping outside when it's hotter actually in the home than outside. I thought we were camping back in East LA, that's what we called it, because that's what our families did. But now it's getting hotter, and we have to change our approach or more people are going to die, plain and simple. Heat waves are a silent killer, particularly for our elderly, our Black, Latino, Asian, and immigrant communities, and those with complicated health conditions are most vulnerable. Extreme heat is killing more people around the world each year than any other climate threat, and it's also making people sicker and disrupting our economy. Just this summer, more than 2,000 people died during heat waves across Europe. Temperatures hit 103 in the Pacific Northwest just a year after hundreds of people died in record heat waves. And California's hottest days are unfortunately still to come. The LA County Climate Vulnerability Assessment projects heat waves will occur up to 10 times more often by 2050. Our legislature and our governor rightfully have been leading the way. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been dedicated to addressing heat, and I have made climate risk and extreme heat a top priority for the Department of Insurance. As the regulator of insurance companies operating in California, considered to be the third largest insurance market in the world, it is critical that we work with our federal, state leaders, along with our global institutions, in communicating the severity of the risk to our communities. We also need to be concerned with protection gaps in insurance. My climate insurance report makes it clear that we have a huge protection gap for extreme heat between what insurance covers and what it doesn't. People without health insurance are obviously at most risk. Heat illness is especially dangerous because it can come on so quickly. If someone delays going to the doctor because they don't have insurance, that could prove deadly. And if we are overwhelmed in our emergency rooms because people do not have insurance, that is also a problem. But beyond health insurance, there is a protection gap for our hospitals, for our local governments, and the cost of extreme heat waves that we don't anticipate or currently plan for. Heat waves cause disruptions in electricity services. Heat waves cause insured crop losses for our agricultural industry. Heat waves cause business interruption and spoilage that may or may not be covered by your insurance. Currently, we do not track these losses like we do any other climate events such as wildfires and hurricanes. Right now, you can buy insurance for fire and flood, but you cannot buy it for extreme heat. That is why we need data and further research, which will also be part of this effort. My department will also be conducting a study on the hidden costs of heat waves. To close our protection gaps for insurance, we need strong risk communication to warn vulnerable communities and put policymakers in a position to direct resources towards initiatives that prevent deaths and protect our communities. And that is what Assemblywoman Luz Rivas' bill is going to do. Insurance touches every part of our lives, and the fact that extreme heat events have impacts on health, infrastructure, crops, and property means that we have to consider how this will impact our economy now and in the future. We know that this works. The city of Sevilla in Spain just became the first to develop extreme ranking system. This week declared its first Category 3 heat wave. Our actions are supported, as Assemblywoman Luz Rivas said, by California's leading doctors who say this will literally save lives. California will continue to lead the nation in protecting our communities from climate change and extreme heat. I am proud to sponsor this legislation and partner with all the legislators that you see here today. I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for braving the extreme heat we're currently living under. Now we'll pass it on, or you're the MC. Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lara, for your leadership and your support on these extreme heat bills. Next up, we have an environmental champion in the Senate, Senator Henry Stern.
Thank you, Assembly Member. It's an honor to be here with leaders from all over the state of California to push forward what I see as a bold and necessary and urgent package of legislation to meet this heat crisis that is killing literally thousands of people in California. In LA alone, we've seen undercounts for the last decade. An LA Times investigation revealed that the numbers are actually in the thousands for people who have died over the last decade, not the 390 deaths that the Department of Public Health currently estimates. So we are undercounting and under-anticipating this emergency. When you look at the cumulative deaths that the state of California faces, in addition to everything from premature births to heat stroke and cardiac issues that don't necessarily take lives right away. But when you have to live in that circumstance day after day and all you have to rely on is a swamp cooler or a fan or going maybe to a cooling center or a mall, when you talk about vulnerable populations, this is a life and death issue. We think that it's not just this ranking system and the early warning and putting that insurance issue first. The avoided health costs, for instance, of the 1,500 people in LA during every extreme heat day. 1,500 additional people go to the hospital that the system's just not aware of. That's 1,500 people in extreme circumstances that we're just getting hit with costs. It's smart to get ahead of this. So how do you get ahead of this issue? It's everything from better prenatal and perinatal care, which Dr. Rambula is working on and with a critical piece of legislation. And as somebody who has an 11-month-old daughter who has to try to walk her around the San Fernando Valley to try to get her to take a midday nap, or her mom when she's pregnant and walking around in 121 degrees in Canoga Park. These aren't just uncomfortable things for women and for families. This is really affecting the health of our kids. We think this can be attacked both at a sort of community-wide level, and I really appreciate the Assembly members' multi-year effort on building a community resilience strategy, which is a critical piece of our budget planning effort. We hope to get her community resilience funding and extreme heat package funded this year, along with the governor's support, who just came out in favor of a major effort around healthy and climate-safe homes. We're carrying legislation on that front, SB 1261. Which is currently in Assembly rules, but it would essentially move forward new HVAC systems but that are called heat pumps that the Biden administration just backed in the Manchin Compromise, where you'll get thousands of dollars off of new air conditioning for your home, especially if you live in one of these vulnerable communities. I think the million most vulnerable people in LA should be on a fast track to getting their homes cooled, to getting more trees and parks in their community, to getting better advance warning, and to getting better health care. And with that, I think we'd be doing our duty. So I really appreciate you giving me a venue here. And these bills are pending. Currently, the Assembly bills are pending before the Senate Appropriations Committee with Chair Portantino. So we're really hoping that my colleague jumps on board with this package and we can meet this heat crisis head on this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stern. Well, we're all feeling the heat up here. Probably not the day to wear black for me, but it goes with the theme, right? The heat, you know. So next up, we have Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia from the Coachella Valley. He has been working on heat issues, especially for outdoor workers. So welcome, Assemblymember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Muy buenas tardes. Mis palabras van a ser en español para dirigir los medios y las comunidades vulnerables, que creo que es el objetivo de nuestras propuestas legislativas. Estamos aquí, como han mencionado varios colegas, para asegurar que los mecanismos legislativos estén en lugares apropiados para prevenir lo que viene siendo la muerte por la causa del calor. Hoy, aún así, estamos aquí y nos sentimos un poco incómodos por lo que viene siendo la temperatura. Hay miles y miles de trabajadores por todo el estado de California ahorita que se encuentran cosechando nuestras tierras agrícolas, miles de personas trabajando en los hoteles, en industrias hoteleras de turismo, trabajando hacia afuera, en donde están teniendo que soportar este calor y poniendo sus vidas en riesgo. Creo que lo que hoy queremos recalcar bastante fuerte es de que estas propuestas son para prevenir la muerte de las personas vulnerables en nuestro estado de California. ¿Y quiénes son esas personas? Los datos nos dicen que son personas de color, son personas de bajos ingresos, son personas que viven en comunidades vulnerables. Yo represento la área del Valle de Coachella y el Valle Imperial, que esta semana se designó una de las áreas más calientes en nuestro país, el Valle Imperial. Entonces, estas propuestas tratan de asegurar que podamos prevenir esas enfermedades y esas muertes de nuestros trabajadores que son tan importantes para la economía de nuestro estado de California. I'll be brief in English. Thank you to our colleagues, to our commissioner, who clearly is an amazing individual who understands the collaboration that it requires to get things done in the legislature. And so thank you for reaching out to us, Commissioner Lara. And these bills really at the core of the purpose are to save lives. And I think every legislator has mentioned that, preventing, heat illnesses and the loss of life is really at the core of these pieces of legislation. I mentioned that, as we sit here uncomfortable in this weather, there are thousands and thousands of people working in the fields or working in our hospitality and tourism industry that don't have a choice. And so we're asking agencies, we're asking departments to look at this issue through the lens of saving lives. And I'm just very grateful to be able to collaborate with our colleagues here and present this package of bills, particularly the heat ranking system that will be the first of its kind in its nation. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Next up, we have Assemblymember Cristina Garcia that represents Southeast Los Angeles County and has joined us in this effort to protect vulnerable communities.
Thank you. I want to start off by thanking Assemblymember Luz Rivas for her continuous leadership in this. She's only been here for 4 years, but from day one, this has been a priority for her, and her work benefits hundreds, thousands, millions of community members in our state, including my community. So I want to thank you for that leadership and on our colleagues to continue to do this work out here. And as we're a little bit toasty and we're sharing our personal stories of dealing with heat, it's become that much more often and that much more scary and that much more dangerous for our vulnerable communities out there. I live in Southeast Los Angeles County. I've had the privilege of representing that community for the last 10 years. It's a community that's zigzagged by 6 freeways. It's bookended by the San Gabriel Riverbed and the Los Angeles Riverbed, but don't be fooled, those rivers were paved over, and I call it all just a concrete jungle. That is our only open space in communities like mine that are so dense. All this concrete between the riverbeds and the freeways create an extreme heat island on a regular basis, and we see it more often. And we're sharing stories about growing up, but I still live in the city of Bell Gardens where my neighbors and myself have no air conditioning, and there have been many a nights when I have to get up in the middle of the night and walk outside because it's cooler outside than in my house, and I need that break. And so we are still using those do-it-yourself remedies for heat out there. We're just doing them more often. But I think part of the silent dangers, part of this that we're not talking about, is that this extreme heat also creates a toxic stew in these communities. These are some of the most polluted communities. Our water, our soil, and our air is extremely polluted. It's in the top 5% of pollution for the state out there. But when it gets hot, it's that much more toxic out there, and it's that much more dangerous, and we're much more likely to end up in the hospital or dead out there, and it's being undercounted, and it's very scary for our communities. And so in addition to the work that we're doing and leading the state and the nation with this ranking system and the work I am sure my colleagues are going to continue to do along the way, been working with my colleagues to ensure we're cleaning up these toxics, that we are holding polluters accountable out there, but we have decades upon decades of generation pollution to fix. And so in the meantime, we need more than just cooling centers, because those cooling centers might let me sleep at night a little bit better, but they're not going to save me and protect me from the toxic stew that these heat waves are creating a little too often in communities like mine as well. And so I am imploring our appropriations chairs to get these packages through so we could be leaders as we are dealing with the discomfort that we are here today. Brevemente, le quiero dar las gracias a la asambleísta Luz Rivas. Aunque solo tiene 4 años en la asamblea, desde el primer día ella ha estado trabajando en este tema y ayudando a millones de personas en California, incluyendo a las personas de mi distrito. Entonces estoy muy agradecida por su liderazgo y estoy asegurada que ese liderazgo sigue hoy y va a seguir en adelante. Mi distrito está en el sureste de Los Ángeles, donde somos muchos latinos, muchos inmigrantes, muchas personas que están sufriendo con este calor, no nomás este ratito, pero todo el año. Y es un área donde tenemos 6 carreteras grandes, tenemos 2 ríos, el río de Los Ángeles y el río de San Gabriel, pero la idea es que esos ríos son cemento, puro cemento. No tenemos árboles tampoco. Es una área donde hay mucho calor porque hay tanto cemento aquí. Y muchas veces en las noches no podemos dormir, tenemos que salir afuera para tener un poquito de aire refrescante en el medio de la noche. Y hay muchas cosas que hacemos, pero la realidad es que esta área también tiene mucha tóxica en el aire, en el agua, y cuando está caliente, esa tóxica es un caldo tóxico muy horrible que nos está matando. Entonces, el trabajo que se está haciendo aquí con estos proyectos de leyes, el trabajo que se está haciendo para manejar y mejor controlar esas tóxicas es muy importante para salvar a las vidas de nuestras comunidades vulnerables, comunidades inmigrantes como la que yo represento ahora. Y un orgullo estar aquí con todo este grupo de líderes haciendo ese trabajo para asegurarnos que estemos en comunidades más saludables y que estemos sobreviviendo estas temperaturas tan altas. Gracias.
Thank you, Assembly Member. And last but not least, we have a very important member of our group, Dr. Joaquin Arambula, Assembly Member from the Central Valley, and also an emergency room physician that can tell us firsthand the impacts that extreme heat has on vulnerable communities.
Thank you, Chair Rivas, Chair Stern, Commissioner Lara, as well as Cristina Garcia and Eduardo Garcia. It's an honor to join you here today. Extreme heat is hitting hardest our most vulnerable communities, especially in our rural areas of our state. I represent the 31st Assembly District, which is the top agricultural producing county in our state and country. And so it is in mind of those Central Valley farm workers who are toiling under the hot sun that I stand before you today. But while they're out there toiling, it's not simply the extreme heat that they are exposed to, but the bad air quality, which is exacerbated by the smoke we currently have from wildfires. And so it's important for us to have a package of legislation to address the effects of extreme heat. This year, I've introduced Assembly Bill 2420, a bill that will help us to create guidelines and best practices so we can start to understand the effect of extreme heat is having on our perinatal, our pregnant mothers, and our young children. It's going to be important for us to listen to the guidelines and best practices that come out so we can make changes for our state. But we must also meet the moment now by making sure that we are having cooling centers for our elders and seniors if they have time to reach them. It was when they didn't have time to reach them that they would oftentimes then come see me when I was working in an emergency room. And it was there that we saw the effects of extreme heat, which led from heat stroke to dehydration to acute kidney injuries. We can and must meet this moment by making sure that we are providing the resources that all of our communities need. We must now transition to a place where we can allow all people who call this state home the ability to live and thrive. And for us to do that, we must look towards this package of bills, and I'm grateful to be here with the legislators today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank all of the members that have joined us today that are collaborating and making sure that we get this past the finish line, these bills, these extreme heat bills. Next, we're ready to take any questions if there are any.
On a logistical note, Madam Assemblymember, is just take me if the appropriations committee is where it's going to go, it's where it's right now?
Yeah, so there are several assembly bills that are currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee, led by the chair, Senator Portantino. Decisions will be made by next week on whether these bills will continue on to the Senate floor.
Thank you so much. And by the way, going on to the idea about the heat ranking system, is that kind of like, you know, when you have a hurricane and they say it's a category 1, it's the same type of principle, am I understanding?
Yes, so his question is related to what is this extreme heat ranking system? And it is very similar to what happens in states that are warned when hurricanes are coming. The public knows there's ranking of a hurricane like category 1, 2, 3. And that's what we envision for an extreme heat wave coming, that the public would be warned and would know what each category means and what they should be doing to prepare for that.
In the San Fernando Valley, where Senator Stern, you know, the park you're mentioning and where you're from, that can make a big difference?
Yes, so if we are warned ahead of time and we know what to do based on what category heat wave is coming our way, then people like that live in our districts, like in the San Fernando Valley, Southeast LA, the Central Valley, all over California, can be better prepared. And that is our goal, to save lives, right? So, thank you. Well, thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to continue to advocate and fight for extreme heat mitigation in California. Thank you.
Well done. Good job.